me, Ali Fadhil. Now, once again, it's really hard to be in a jovial mood when all you have to do is turn on social media and flick through the horrific images emerging from the Middle East, specifically Palestine, but actually not just Palestine, because the unspoken genocide that we're seeing in Afghanistan to the Hazara community is reaching critical now, with news of a sports facility being targeted by terrorists. At the end of the day, women, children, families all ripped apart means that the people that really suffer from war are the innocent. It's in these times, and specifically this day of Friday, that we call upon the only man that can bring prosperity and justice to this world as it is filled with cruelty and corruption. Imam al-Mahdi ajallahu ta'ala farajul sharif. However, through the power, the wisdom and the might of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Other than that, however, we do have a thought-provoking show on for you today. So here's what's coming up. I'm joined in the studio, well, I'm actually joined online by Sister Azra Hassan Ali, where we're talking accepting different abilities. So inshallah, we look forward to that. And I'm joined in the studio by reciter and teacher Sohail Chauhan, where I ask about the history of Urdu traditional recitation and how he's seen its development over the many years he has been in this blessed service. And rounding it all up is News of the Week, as I give you the most pressing news pieces occurring this week, brought to you by the Shia Waves Agency. So that's an exciting lineup for you today on Friday, the 27th of October. Recitations, Azra to begin with, recitations on the hour, accepting different abilities, and then we have News of the Week, inshallah. Welcome back. Now, hi there. We know that supplication is the best form of worship, especially supplicating for an early reappearance of our awaited Savior, Imam al-Mahdi ajallahu ta'ala farajul sharif, and his victory. However, before invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of our awaited Imam, it's necessary for the supplicant, i.e. me and you, to remove themselves of all of the factors that hinder acceptance of supplications. What do I mean? He must purify himself from undesirable traits and bad behavior like inclination to materialism, pride, arrogance, jealousy, backbiting, and the like. Especially because in this dua, the dua that you're about to listen to, we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to convey our message directly to the Imam and pledging our allegiance to the Imam as is mentioned in the dua. So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He removes all vices from our hearts, making it pure in loving and devoting our lives to the Imam of our time. So stay connected, brothers and sisters, and we'll see you after the dua.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ala Muhammad. اللهم رب النور العظيم ورب الكرسي الرفيع ورب البحر المسجور ومنزل التوراة والإنجيل والزبور ورب الظل والحرور ومنزل القرآن العظيم ورب الملائكة المقربين والأنبياء والمرسلين. اللهم إني أسألك باسمك الكريم وبنور وجهك المنير وبنور وجهك المنير وملكك القديم يا حي يا قيوم أسألك باسمك الذي أشرقت به السماوات والأرضون وباسمك الذي يصلح به الأولون والآخرون وباسمك الذي يصلح به الأولون والآخرون يا حيان قبل كل حي ويا حيان بعد كل حي ويا حيان حين لا حي يا محيي الموتى ومميت الأحياء يا حي لا إله إلا أنت. اللهم بلغ مولانا الإمام الغادي المهدي القائم بأمرك صلوات الله عليه وعلى آبائه الطاهرين عن جميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها سهلها وجبلها وبرها وبحرها وعني وعن والدي من الصلوات زنة عرش الله ومداد كلماته وما أحصاه علمه وأحاط به كتابه. اللهم إني أجدد له في صبيحة يومي هذا وما عشت من أيامي عهدا وعقدا وبيعة له في عنقي لا أحول عنها ولا أزول أبدا. اللهم اجعلني من أنصاره وأعوانه والذابين عنه والمسارعين إليه في قضاء حوائجه والممتثلين لأوامره والمحامين عنه والسابقين إلى إرادته والمستشهدين بين يديه. اللهم إن حال بيني وبينه الموت الذي جعلته على عبادك حتما مقضيا فأخرجني من قبري مؤتزرا كفني شاغرا سيفي مجردا قناتي ملبيا دعوة الداعي في الحاضر والبادي. اللهم أرني الطلعة الرشيدة والغرة الحميدة واكحل ناظري بنظرة مني إليه وعجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه وأوسع منهجه وسلك بي محجته وأنفذ أمره واشدد أزره واعمر اللهم به بلادك وأحيي به عبادك فإنك قلت وقولك الحق. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس فاظهر اللهم لنا وليك وابن بنت نبيك المسمى باسم رسولك صلى الله عليه وآله حتى لا يظفر بشيء من الباطل إلا مزقا ويحق الحق ويحققا واجعله اللهم مفزعا لمظلوم عبادك وناصرا لمن لا يجد له ناصرا غيرك ومجددا لما عطل من أحكام كتابك ومشيدا لما ورد من أعلام دينك وسنن نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله واجعله اللهم ممن حصنته من بأس المعتدين اللهم وسر نبيك محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله برؤيته ومن تبعه على دعوته وارحم استكانتنا بعده اللهم اكشف هذه الغمة اللهم اكشف هذه الغمة عن هذه الأمة بحضوره وعجل لنا ظهوره إنهم يرونه بعيدا ونراه قريبا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين ثم تضرب على فخذك الأيمن بيدك 3 مرات وتقول كل مرة العجل العجل يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان العجل العجل يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان العجل العجل يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
Welcome back, dear viewers. You're watching Morning Baraka live on Imam Hussein TV 3. Now, Islam prides itself in promoting inclusivity, empathy, and understanding. We have numerous narrations from our holy prophets and the Ahlul Bayt alayhimussalam regarding the way they treated the less abled, especially teachings such as every person deserving respect and dignity regardless of their physical appearance, and that everyone should have the opportunity to participate in society to the best of their abilities. There are those in our community who have taken it upon themselves to live the words of the Ahlul Bayt on inclusion and go one step further to make it their life's mission. One such person I'm honoured to have on the show is Early Years Speech and Language Therapy Clinical Service Lead, Sister Azra Hassan Ali, who joins me online. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Azra.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you, Brother Ali?
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Fantastic, cool. So look, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And I guess, look, first things first, society, Azra, is very ignorant in the way that the less abled works. And they're also ignorant of the science behind it. And it's actually shocking to realize how ignorant the community can be. So what that happens because of the ignorance, it leads to mistreatment of the less abled. Can you start by explaining to the viewers the differences between neurodivergent and neurotypical?
Okay, so I feel like the world is playing catch up with us because we're in a really privileged position of having teachings from the Holy Quran and Ahlul Bayt, as you said. And you know that there is a verse in Quran that says, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. So Allah has created us in the best form. He created us all perfectly. There are no mistakes. There are no errors. No one is created less than the other. The only thing that is really important for us to remember is the word difference and the fact that difference is absolutely okay. Allah meant for the world to be this way. It was very purposeful. We were created like this, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, what we have done as human beings is maybe it's that we thrive on it or we feel our own sense of good self by it if everything and everyone conforms to certain ideas or rules or norms. So this is what neurotypical means. It is a word that describes somebody whose brain functions or their behaviors or their processing is considered standard or typical or meets the kind of norms that society expect to
Right.
happen of the people around them, right? Now, it's normally the case that people who are neurotypical don't really have any idea. We don't go around saying, I am neurotypical, because the subject never comes up. No one ever questions us. We become very good at fitting in boxes, behaving in ways that the people around us expect us to. And I would argue, particularly in our communities, we're very good at judging each other based on societal norms and expectations. So we
Yeah.
all get very good at fitting that idea of neurotypical. Then
Right.
you have the term neurodivergent.
Yeah.
And this is the term for people whose brain processes, learns, or they behaves differently from what is considered typical.
Right.
Now, back in the day, we would talk about symptoms and red flags or difficulties and disorders. These things were considered a problem or abnormal, but we now understand, or scientists do anyway, and this is where I say we're playing catch up. Communities and scientists are catching up with the idea that actually being neurodivergent isn't inherently an issue for the individual. They simply are different. They learn differently. They behave
Right.
differently. They play differently. They make friends differently. But that's just the way that their brain works.
So
And
as
that
a,
is okay.
I don't mean to cut you, because I know this is a very, very important topic, but if the scientists have said, they're not less able, they're just functioning in a different way, why has society taken it as a norm to see them as less abled?
Like I said in the beginning, I wonder whether we just thrive off the idea that we should all fit into boxes. It's easier that way. It's easier to organize our schools and our systems and our places of gathering, whether that be a place of education or worship, in particular ways where everybody has to conform. It isn't easy to organize an event or a place of gathering that considers many different needs and different abilities and different ways of learning or behaving. We're making efforts towards that. So,
Yeah.
with the Muslim community that I frequently go to and that I'm the head of the Send committee for, we're trying really hard to make sure that our events are catered towards as many different people as possible. But actually, it's really hard. It would be so much easier just to do one thing one way and everybody else has to conform. So that's the first thing, is that it's ease. Secondly, I would argue there's something a bit discomforting about difference. We all want to be normal. We all want to be typical. We all want to fit the same sort of way of being. And we have built this idea of perfection as being something that looks the same. And therefore, if you look different, I feel a bit threatened. So I'm going to make sure that everybody else joins me in that belief that you are in some way less than me.
Yeah. Absolutely. So look, everything that you've mentioned is, all about inclusivity. So can you describe what does actually inclusivity mean? We hear this term a lot, but what does it mean in your opinion?
I think there are many different levels to inclusivity. We've got to take ourselves right back to, the World Health Organization defines disability as only something that is held back or impairments that are created because of limitations placed on that person by society. So disability in itself is a social construct. There's no actual thing such as disability. There are just differences. So when we talk about inclusivity, we need to take it right back to our own thinking, our thought processes. How do we even view somebody with a disability? When you see somebody who has a prosthetic leg, uses a wheelchair, perhaps a child who is stimming, perhaps you're sitting in a majalis and a child is making lots of noise, vocalizing repeatedly, perhaps you're in a supermarket and you meet somebody who's not perhaps pushing their trolley in an exact particular line and aware that lots of people need to negotiate. They're just doing things on their own agenda. Before you've even interacted with that person, what thoughts are going through your mind? And the
Absolutely.
reason why this is important is we know whether we like it or not, our thoughts will manifest into our facial expressions and then into our behaviors.
Yeah.
Even if it's really subtle, there may be, arguably most of the time there is, an unconscious bias towards people who are neurotypical. We prefer to see, we prefer to talk with, we prefer to interact with people who fit the idea of neurotypical. So let's first look back at our thinking, our thought patterns, and remember our teachings that everybody is accepted, everybody has an equal right to be here, an equal right to access our beautiful deen as well, which was created for, remember, a people who submit, not for a people who conform.
Yeah.
So the
Absolutely.
first idea for inclusivity is just our thought processes. Then
Yeah.
you've got to think about physicality. How are we adapting our houses, our institutions, our madrasas, our mosques, our schools, so that everybody can access it physically, everybody can hear, and if those who are deaf can't hear, then perhaps we need sign language interpreters. Our madrasas need to be adapted for children who learn in all kinds of different ways. You don't need to have a diagnosis of autism or anything else to learn in a different way. I know for me, for example, I learn through doing and discussing and being with other people as a team. But if the people who design schools and madrasas decide to sideline those with disabilities or who are different learners, you're removing their opportunity to learn from their peers or socialize with each other.
Okay. So it
Um,
needs a bit of, I was going to say it needs a bit of patience, especially when, because a lot of the time, you know, you want your event to be successful, and you don't want to be pressurized into thinking that, oh, if there's commotion, they see it as negative because it's going to hinder the majlis, spoil the event because there's so much commotion. But actually, this commotion is this human being who is expressing themselves in the way that they only know. And they're not very typical in the way they're thinking, right?
and you know, brother, if you ever heard how loud the salawat of that child might be, it would make you feel bad. Because
Yeah.
I know my salawat is not as loud. It does something to your heart. It's so pure, it's so special, it's so non-intentional. And what I mean is that they're not doing it to impress anybody. They're not
No.
doing it so that the people around them can go, wah, wah, look at them. The salawat is so loud, and go home and talk about it. They're just doing it because they genuinely have this huge love for Allah. What a
Absolutely.
massive lesson there is in that for you and I, right?
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. And that's maybe another point about inclusivity. If any of us are in a position of responsibility or we lead anything at all, it is our God given responsibility to make sure that in the planning stages, in our
Yeah.
agendas for meetings, that catering to the needs of different learners or people who socialize differently is in there from the start. So I
Right.
very often get calls from committees or organizations that say, hey, Sister Azra, we're organizing this event and it's running in a week. And we just realized that we haven't really catered towards the needs of people with disabilities. What can we do? And of course, I will give my input. What we need is for people who are skilled and who have knowledge and people who have lived experience, and I'll talk about that in a second, being on the committees so that inclusivity can be a part of the planning process right from inception.
Right.
Now, when I talk about people with lived experience, I mean we don't have people that have disabilities or learn or socialize differently on committees, but we desperately need to. So, in the wider world, there is a really big move towards interview panels, having members from the BAME community, the Black and minority ethnic communities, or parents of children with disabilities, or adults who have disabilities or differences themselves.
Yeah.
Because I can assume what inclusivity means and what needs to be done to make people feel included. But I don't really know until I ask those children, adults, and families. That is the best way to make somebody feel really valued and really included. We
Absolutely.
have absolutely no right in a majalis to make a parent feel like you shouldn't be there because your child is making too much noise.
Yeah.
Allah never said that a majalis is not accepted unless you all sit there uniformly, quietly, recite when we tell you to, and stop when we tell you to.
Yeah.
There are no such
Absolutely.
guides for us.
On that note, especially when it comes to speaking to people who are less abled, language is very, very important. On that note, before we actually came on air, I put my hands up and say, you educated me in just one sentence on just changing the way we describe certain situations or even describe certain people can make a huge difference in how we communicate with them. So for example, again, I'll put my hand up, I'll say, I wanted the title to be accepting different disabilities, right? And you said to me, well, no, why can't we change it to accepting different abilities? And I'm like, well, you've actually, you've made a very good point, and you've educated me in just one sentence. So why is the language we use around disabilities important, Sister Ezra?
So the whole idea is that we're trying to move away from the medical model of disability, and actually try to empower each other to believe and to really realize that everybody is inherently able. Everyone has the ability to fulfill their individual own potential. Allah created us all in the most perfect way. We were supposed to be this way. So who am I to say that you are less able? Because then the implication is that I am better than you. And there
Yeah.
is this whole idea of other. There is
Yeah.
no other. There's no place for it. We're all one ummah. We're all created um, to exist codependently alongside each other. Now, that is not to deny difference. I know that there will be people watching this who say that undeniably my child has difficulties, and that is how they choose to be identified with their disability first, in that I am autistic, I have Down syndrome, rather than I am a boy with Down syndrome, I am a girl with autism. And it is up to people how they like to be identified. But the best thing we can do, therefore, is to ask them. So if we're not sure, exactly as you did, you asked me about the title of today's conversation, and then we had a discussion around that. That is the best thing that you can do, is to check in with the language that you're using. We want to move away from saying someone has an impairment or symptoms. Symptoms of what? They don't have a disease. They don't have some kind of problem that we're trying to cure or to
Yeah.
get over or to
Yeah.
overcome.
Yeah.
The problem lies with us entirely. We need to fix our way of talking about, supporting, and thinking about someone with a difference. How can
So
we adapt our own way of being with that person?
So let's give some practical examples of, and maybe educate the viewers now. So you've mentioned things like impairment and symptoms. Impairment, usually, typically that comes around vision. So the visually impaired. How would you then turn that one around? Or for example, as you mentioned, symptoms. How would you turn that one around to make it a bit more inclusive? What are the terms? What are the terms you know from the top of your head that we can change around to be more inclusive?
So rather than talking about a child's symptoms, we can just talk about their behaviors, because they
If
are the way they are. So if a child has rather than saying a child has a symptom of autism, so they flap or they stim, and that is a symptom of autism, we just say that it's just a behavior. And rather than saying something like somebody is confined to a wheelchair, we
Okay.
can just say that they use a wheelchair. Rather than saying that someone has a hearing impairment, we say that they are deaf or hard of hearing. And these are terms that members of those communities have told us that they prefer to use. This, again, isn't something we have made up. So rather than saying somebody is visually impaired, we will say that they are blind. So then
Right.
you're taking away the word impairment. You
Absolutely.
do
Okay.
have to remember, though, that at the end of the day, there will always be a number of people who prefer the word visual impairment. What I'm saying is not set in stone. It is not prescribed in any way. It is what we are discovering a lot of people with these differences prefer to be talked about and referred to in the language around them as well.
Yeah.
So if anyone listening to this has children, they will know health visitors do something called the 2-year check, and they look
Okay.
for red flags in children. So, for example, people who don't let children play or socialize or in the same way that children speak, using actual speech. And if children don't do these things, then you get something written down in their book as having red flags. What we're moving away from is that these are not red flags. These are simply behaviors that adults need to be aware of. And we, in fact, need to use these as different interests to support that child to fulfill their full potential.
Absolutely. So look, in the last, I wish we did have more time, but in the last couple of minutes, the biggest interaction that we have as members of this Shia community, the biggest interaction that we have with those who are different, who have differences, who are less abled, I don't want to say less able, sorry, who have different abilities.
Yes.
Who have different abilities, is the majlis, is the majalis, is the community events that we go to. So how can we engage better with families of children and adults that have disabilities?
Very first thing that we can do, like I said before, is to check our thought processes.
Yeah.
Because many of us will go by our historic experiences at Majalis, and we might wonder, we might be curious in our mind, will that person be there that takes up a huge amount of space with their wheelchair? If I take my child to the particular area where mothers and children sit, will there be that child there that keeps taking my child's toys and food and poking and pinching them? So before we've even left our home, we've started to make negative assumptions about our experiences with other families whose children have different abilities, or adults as well. So first of all, check our thought processes, and hand in hand with that, please let's open our mind to the idea that actually for a family or an adult who has a disability or different ability, the effort or the time that it takes for them to come out of their house and attend a majalis is huge. We mustn't underestimate it. And I will admit, I came to this sort of realization only very recently through making very good friends with an extremely admired person in our community who makes that effort wherever she can to bring her child to the majalis. But I will also know that sometimes there are families who send their children who are neurotypical to the majalis and keep their child with a disability or different ability at home. Why? Because they know that they will be told their child is naughty, or, and it really, really hurts me to say this, but families will be told, what did you do? What sin did you commit to be in this position? Astaghfirullah. This is exactly what families are experiencing. And I have to use this platform to say this because there are many members of our community who make these extremely hurtful comments. Now, I can see your face has dropped. Imagine if you were a receiver of this comment. Why on earth would you want to come out of your house and attend our centre again if you've received a comment like that? So please, can we stop making such hurtful and unfounded comments? We have absolutely no right to let any of these thoughts go through our head, let alone come out of our mouths.
I don't want to end on a negative note. So, you know, in your personal outlook and the interactions that you've had with those who are behaving differently, who have differences, what's your positive outlook now?
That we need to meet each other halfway, because these families are really inspiring. They're not heroes. That's again making them other, okay? But they're experiencing some of the most toughest times, and they are so absolutely inspiring. So let's meet them halfway by talking to them, welcoming them. Next time you hear that there is a function at your centre, call them up and say, are you attending? Because I am really looking forward to seeing you. I want to sit with you. In fact, I have space in my car. Let's travel together. Get to know them. Ask them, what is life like for you? Speak to their children as well. Don't try to avoid or be scared or fearful about talking to their child or adult with disability. They're human beings like me and you. They have interests and hobbies and challenges as well. So let's just view each other as human beings and make sure that our centres are places where everybody feels welcome.
Inshallah, inshallah. Sister Azra Hassan Ali, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for your valuable time.
Jazakallah for the opportunity to talk today.
Thank you, thank you. So that was Sister Azra Hassan Ali. That was such a thought-provoking conversation. I wish that we genuinely had more time to be able to speak to Azra. And just, it's so eye-opening, so insightful to understand how this world works and understand essentially how to interact with those who are differently abled. Look, we're going to make mistakes along the way, 100%. Like I'm trying, but I do make mistakes in the terminology. But the more we talk about it, the more it becomes a norm, and the more we can get used to these terms. And again, I don't want to use these terms as though they're special, but just making it very inclusive, making it very normal, speaking to those who are differently abled. Now, coming up after the break, I'm honored to be joined by an Ustad of the Urdu tradition, an expert in his field, Sohail Chauhan. So stay tuned, and I'll see you in a bit.
Are you in court for raping English girls? Remember? You're here defending the paedophile. I'm here defending your dad. Women are here defending the paedophile. You're here defending.
We don't need a TV channel because we've got mosques.
We have Islamic centres that are always open.
We have schools teaching Islam.
Hijab is part of a school uniform.
Islam has come and it's established here in the West.
And everyone's happy.
They love us, our food, our fashion,
our culture.
The media is always on our side.
We've got plenty of English speakers, plenty of English books,
and plenty of places to go and learn in the English language.
Let's be real.
Let's get active. Be more involved.
www.imamhusseinfree.tv.
زہرا یہ پکاری اللہ جل یا مہدی روکے زہرا یہ پکاری اللہ جل یا مہدی روکے زہرا یہ پکاری اللہ جل یا مہدی مجھ پہ دربار پسلی میری اللہ جل یا اللہ جل کے زہرا یہ پکاری اللہ جل یا مہدی کے زہرا یہ پکاری اللہ جل یا مہدی انتقام کے تجھے لینا ہے محسن کا میرے انتقام کے تجھے لینا ہے محسن کا میرے یاد کرتی ہے ابھی یاد کرتی ہے ابھی سے تجھے تیری دادی اللہ جل یا اللہ جل کے زہرا یہ پکاری اللہ جل یا مہدی کے زہرا یہ پکاری اللہ جل یا مہدی زخمی پہلو پہ ہی ایک ہاتھ میرا رہتا تھا ہے زخمی پہلو ایک ہاتھ میرا رہتا تھا دوسرا ہاتھ اٹھا کر دوسرا ہاتھ اٹھا کر जल या मेहदी अल्लाह जल के ज़हरा ये पुकारी अल्लाह जल या मेहदी के ज़हरा ये पुकारी अल्लाह जल या मेहदी हंस रहे थे सभी दरबारी मेरी गुर्बत पर हंस रहे थे सभी दरबारी मेरी गुर्बत पर मैंने तहरीर नबी खाक से ये कह के चुनी
Welcome back, dear viewers of Imam Hussein TV 3. If you've just joined us, you're watching Morning Baraka live from London. The studio's here in London on Imam Hussein TV 3. We've just finished a really insightful and thought-provoking and eye-opening conversation with Sister Azra Hassan Ali, who taught me personally about the ways to deal with those who are differently abled. I will get used to the terms, inshallah, so that we can create a more inclusive world, because that is the principles, that is the values of Islam, especially the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. In light of what's going on so far, the inability of people to consistently come together in the face of injustice is a reflection of the intricate and multifaceted nature of human society. In an ideal world, one would hope that the call for justice would resonate universally, uniting all in the pursuit of a fair and equitable society. However, the reality is far from complex. Differing perspectives and values, deeply ingrained prejudices, and a multitude of external factors make unity in the face of injustice a challenging endeavor. Injustice as a concept can be highly subjective, often perceived differently by individuals from various backgrounds and walks of life. What one person sees as a glaring injustice, another may regard as an unfortunate but unchangeable reality. Fear and repression further compound the problem. Oppressive systems, both political and societal, can silence dissenting voices, creating an atmosphere of fear that discourages collective action. The risks associated with speaking out against injustice can deter many who might otherwise be inclined to join a cause. Moreover, there is often a pervasive sense of apathy, especially when the injustices do not directly impact a person's life. This indifference can stem from a belief that individual actions won't make a difference, or a lack of awareness about the extent of the problem. Yet, it's crucial to remember that history is replete with examples of remarkable solidarity in the face of injustice. Social movements, from civil rights struggles to environmental activism, have demonstrated that change is possible when people unite with a common purpose. Such movements prove that despite the obstacles, human beings have the capacity to overcome their differences and work together to address injustice. In the end, while challenges to achieving unity in the face of injustice are substantial, they are not insurmountable. Building a more just and equitable society requires ongoing education, dialogue, and a shared commitment to fundamental principles of fairness and equality. Overcoming these obstacles will demand time, patience, and a collective effort, but the pursuit of justice is a cause worth the struggle. And that was my 2-minute reflection, because the reason why I mentioned that is because I've seen a lot on social media, especially in the past 2-3 weeks, that there is a common cause, but people are slightly indifferent to it. Some are more passionate towards it. So it just depends. However, we have to understand that people come from different backgrounds, and the way they see injustice is different from one person to another. Now, we were supposed to be having Brother Sohail Chauhan, an Ustad in the Urdu tradition, reciting and also explaining and discussing various melody and poetry and tone, and I am very passionate about this topic. However, unfortunately, due to external circumstances, he wasn't able to come into the studio today. We're going to reschedule because it's a massively important topic, which inshallah I'll have Brother Sohail on. I just apologize on my behalf that he wasn't able to come into the studio. But inshallah, we're going to be having him very, very soon, inshallah. Other than that, to wrap up the show, essentially, we're going to be going straight to news of the week. Right. Welcome to News of the Week, where I give you a rundown of the major news pieces emerging this week. And we start in Kazakhstan, where the recent Kazakh government's ban on wearing the hijab in educational institutions has sparked public resentment in the country. According to official figures, nearly 70% of Kazakhstan's population is Muslim, while supporters of the ban stress that Kazakhstan is a secular state. Kazakhstan's Minister of Education, Janibek Bisembayev, confirmed that the Atirau region alone, 150 girls have dropped out of school since the beginning of September due to the ban, and the Turkestan region. Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev also commented on the issue at the National Teachers Conference in capital Astana, saying that religious freedom is guaranteed by law in our country, adding that Kazakhstan was and will remain a secular state. However, opponents say that such restrictions violate the principles of freedom of conscience. Togyan Kogaili, a member of the Social Council, who said that the ban is illegal and the hijab is actually a head covering worn by girls in Kazakhstan since puberty, that is, from a certain age. Kogiali added that the law enshrines the right to wear clothing, and the ban that has been enacted is an intended obstacle to the exercise of this right. The Spiritual Administration of Muslims of Kazakhstan has proposed a solution that would require girls who wish to wear the hijab to be educated in a school or Islamic educational institution. Moving on, the Council of Shia Muslims in Southern California, USA, announced on Wednesday earlier this week that the International Time Organization for Humanitarian Relief, managed by Mrs. Najah Bezzi, had received a special award from the state government. The award was given during a ceremony held in the state in the presence of the heads of many Islamic and non-Islamic humanitarian organizations. The council said that the Time Organization deserves the award for its great efforts over the past years to change the lives of marginalized women and children. The organization has worked to empower women and children to meet their basic needs. The council also noted that the humanitarian organization had previously received support and appreciated from CNN in 2019. And lastly, Al-Kadhimiya Holy Shrine in the Iraqi capital Baghdad confirmed on Wednesday that it is intensifying its efforts to complete the construction of Imam al-Baqir courtyard adjacent to Al-Kadhimiya Holy Shrine. Sources from the Holy Shrine told Shia Waves agency, after 3 years, the construction and development works of Imam Baqir courtyard have reached final stages under the supervision of the head of the Shia Awqaf department. They explained that the project is located on the north side of the Holy Kadhimiya courtyard and is built on an area of 8,000 square meters, noting that the courtyard consists of 2 floors and a basement and can accommodate thousands of pilgrims, as well as important and large facilities. The sources confirmed that this major project is an important achievement that will help accommodate the increasing numbers of pilgrims coming to this holy city around the year. And that's it for today, sadly. Unfortunately, we couldn't have Sohail, but fortunately, we had a fantastic conversation with Sister Azra Hassan Ali. And on another sad note, we have one more week of this season's Morning Baraka. Monday, Tuesday and Friday. Next week, inshallah. It won't fail to live up to the expectations. We have a range of important topics to cover and discuss, ranging from the top of my head, we're talking faith-based schools, we're talking Diary of a CEO from a lady in Tanzania, we're going to Canada, we're going to Dearborn to talk about social media and the tech side of social media. There's a lot to discuss, inshallah, next week, so don't go anywhere, and inshallah we'll see you next week. But I end the show, as always, oh Allah, please make the beginning of this day of mine righteousness, its middle prosperity, and its end success. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
History, if you will read, you'll come across